Hello, everybody. Welcome to our show, Mexican Crossing Lines. You can find us on the stream on Facebook at E8.1 Fargo Moorhead, YouTube at Duke1517, on Twitch at A Mexican Crossing Lines. Welcome to the show. Please share out really important information tonight.
Welcome, everyone. If you want to leave us a message, you can call in our call-in line at 701-566-0917. That's 701-566-0917. Leave us a message, and we may play it on the air. You can also email me at Cindy at kpppfm.com or Duke at kpppfm.com.
So fasten your seatbelts, Dorothy. You're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPP LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Now, yesterday was a very interesting media day because for the last year, people have been getting arrested, over 700 people that participated in the insurrection. And a lot of people have been very upset about the use of that word. They don't want to even call it a riot. Mm-hmm. They want to say that it was just like a tourist visit or something.
Yeah.
And yesterday, we finally had charges of seditious conspiracy come down. At the same time, folks, at the same time, we are finding out that there were members of Congress that participated that were knowledgeable about the activities of the president at the time of the insurrection, what he was doing, and more importantly, what he was not doing. Mm-hmm. And also, there were parts of those conversations that the Select Committee is very interested in hearing from Kevin McCarthy about.
That's right.
They have now asked him to voluntarily speak to them, and he has already said no. Now, when he was asked about this following the insurrection, he said, yes, if I'm asked about the insurrection and the phone call that I had with then President Donald Trump on January 6th, I will do it, because it got out in the media.
Yeah.
On this, the day after the insurrection, McCarthy went out on the floor, and in front of Congress, he said that Donald Trump bore some responsibility for what happened after he talked to him during the insurrection. Other people were around. Other people heard it. And I want to bring up something very important that happened locally, because I have been sending this video clip around to different reporters, and I'm going to send it out again because the link now for this local interview of our North Dakota congressional representative, Republican representative, Kelly Armstrong, talking to then host of 630 Point of View, Chris Berg, in a television interview about the conversation that Kevin McCarthy had with then President Donald Trump. At the time, this was after Kevin McCarthy said that he had had a conversation, and details of that conversation, the fight that Kevin McCarthy had with Trump, where he told him, you don't care, these are, he told them that they were Antifa, and he said, no, they're MAGA people. I was just evacuated. And, that back and forth that they had. There were other people on that call, and one of those people was Kelly Armstrong. There was a number of Republicans that were on the same phone call at the same time and heard the conversation between Trump and Kevin McCarthy. Are all of them going to refuse to speak to the Select Committee? I don't know if the Select Committee is aware of the fact that other people were on that phone call, that Kelly Armstrong admitted in the interview I'm going to play that, yes, he heard that phone call. In fact, he said he was at the Bismarck airport at the time that they were having the heated discussion about, stopping the insurrection, about Trump needing to say something or do something to stop the insurrection and the fight they were having about that. And he heard when the back and forth went on between Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump, wherein they deduced Donald Trump was at least partially at fault. Okay? So with all of that as background and the fact that I sent this to a variety of reporters, I put it in the comments, I sent the link to them of the video with Kelly Armstrong and Chris Berg talking about the call with Trump and Kevin McCarthy. That link, as soon as recently as 4 or 5 months ago, was still available. It has since been removed, but I have uploaded it to our YouTube channel because I think it's an important part of history. And I am going to resend it to the different reporters that I sent it to in the hopes that someone will get this to the January 6th Select Committee. If you're listening to this, if you are watching this, you need to send this video clip to them. You can find the entire broadcast of the program. So for anyone wondering whether this clip was edited down or taken out of context, the entire show is available on Duke 1517, and we will also have just this little clip of the conversation so anybody wanting to review it can see for themselves. It was not taken out of context, and this is exactly what transpired between Representative from North Dakota, Congressional Republican Kelly Armstrong, and then host of 630 Point of View, Chris Berg. Take a listen for yourselves.
Armstrong, welcome back to Point of View. I know you're extremely busy, so thank you so much for giving us and the people of North Dakota some of your time. I want to start here. Yesterday it was being reported that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy was on a phone call with GOP colleagues of yours. I don't know if you're on that call or not, and said that, hey, he spoke with President Trump, and President Trump did take some responsibility for what happened at the Capitol. Were you on that call with House Minority Leader McCarthy, and did he say that?
I was, and I mean, those calls are supposed to be off the record and private because that's how we work on how we go forward. But it's been reported everywhere, so I think at this point it's fair to say, yes, he did say that.
Did he say when he spoke to President Trump and when he said that or anything, or any more details you can give us?
No, I don't. And to be clear, I was in the parking lot at the Bismarck airport trying to wait as long as possible to board a plane, actually when that part of the conversation was going on.
Okay, I want you to play it one more time because I want you to hear Trump admits some responsibility. Listen carefully to the question where Chris Berg asks him, is it true that you and other GOP colleagues were on this call? And is it true that Trump admitted responsibility? And he says, yes. Listen for yourselves.
Armstrong, welcome back to Point of View. I know you're extremely busy, so thank you so much for giving us and the people of North Dakota some of your time. I want to start here. Yesterday it was being reported that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy was on a phone call with GOP colleagues of yours. I don't know if you're on that call or not, and said that, hey, he spoke with President Trump, and President Trump did take some responsibility for what happened at the Capitol. Were you on that call with House Minority Leader McCarthy, and did he say that?
I was, and I mean, those calls are supposed to be off the record and private because that's how we work on how we go forward. But it's been reported everywhere, so I think at this point it's fair to say, yes, he did say that.
Did he say when he spoke to President Trump and when he said that or anything, or any more details you can give us?
No, I don't. And to be clear, I was in the parking lot at the Bismarck airport trying to wait as long as possible to board a plane, actually when that part of the conversation was going on.
He asked him, did Trump say that? Did he say that? Did he accept responsibility? He said, yes. He did. He's like, normally I don't talk about anything the president says. we keep these conversations quiet, but it's been reported everywhere. So yes, Select Committee, if you're listening, you need to hear from this representative of North Dakota,
That's
Kelly Armstrong. And the other shocking news, of course, is that seditious conspiracy charges against Oath Keeper founder Stuart Rhodes. Here's his booking photo. He was arrested in Texas. He is, along with 11 other people, being charged with seditious conspiracy. In the indictment, there are a number of people that are named. I wanted to point out one of the names that we heard, which is James Minuta. That last name sounded very familiar to me because another Minuta was also arrested following the insurrection. One of the people that was, quote unquote, bodyguarding Roger Stone, Mr. Rob Minuta. And you see here the tweet in which the news was breaking on March 8th, shortly after the insurrection occurred in January, of a picture of this Rob Minuta, age 36, with Roger Stone outside of the Willard Hotel, which we now know was a war room for Trump that he had called into January 5th in preparation for the January 6th insurrection. And he was arrested. He then went on to participate in the Capitol siege after being in this photograph the day before, or the morning of January 6th, with Roger Stone. And this was not the only person connected to Roger Stone that has been indicted. So lots of questions about those connections, and we're going to break them down for you here today on my show. Because Roger Stone, he was fundraising for the Proud Boys to go out to Washington. He made videos. He's pictured with the Oath Keepers. And he had spoken recently in a video saying that he always uses the same retired police officers that are his bodyguards for certain events. But on that particular day, on Insurrection Day, his tried and true bodyguards were not available. And he, generously accepted the offer of these kind Oath Keepers.
These nice young men.
Who provided security on so many other occasions to provide it to him. The Oath Keepers are saying this through their lawyers, that they converged on Washington before January 6th not to attack the Capitol, but instead, as part of the security detail, hired, that I would assume means being paid,
yes.
Right? Like for pay, hired to protect conservative celebrities like Roger Stone. I don't think at this point Roger Stone wants to raise his hand and say, yes, I paid these people that were part of a sedition conspiracy, because it's probably not going to look very good. But also, I'm going to call BS on the Oath Keepers through their lawyers. I'm assuming one of the statements from the lawyers is on behalf of Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers himself. But, these folks, I don't know if they forgot that they made these videos or that they've been talking everywhere about what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. These are the dumbest criminals, the dumbest insurrectionists, or maybe the most entitled.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just so entitled and believed so assuredly that they would get away with doing this and that no one would punish them for what they've done, that they didn't bother to try to hide their footsteps. But there is ample evidence, including this interview with InfoWars, in which Rhodes states that they were there with planning to, well, I'll just let you listen. But here's what the Post with this video on Twitter said, this is from January 4th, that, 2 days before or January 4th of 2021, days before the insurrection, where he said, "We have men already stationed outside of D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will stop it. We will be inside D.C., but we will also be outside of D.C., armed and prepared to go in if the president calls us."
Wow.
So listen for yourselves what Stuart Rhodes said they were there to do. And he never even mentions Roger Stone.
What we're doing is we have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will step in and stop it. And we're going to be there to also help secure the coming rally this Saturday and your caravan coming in. So I've got good men on the ground already. We've did a leaders recon there last week, and we're sorting out where we're going to be staging, and we'll be there. We'll be inside D.C. We'll also be on the outside of D.C. armed, prepared to go in if the president calls us up.
So he's talking to InfoWars. That means Alex Jones. And as you know, Alex Jones was called. He's testified to the FBI. He has been subpoenaed. And he brought a caravan. You heard Rhodes mention, we're going to be there for when your caravan comes. Mm-hmm. Roger Stone and Alex Jones were working together on this whole organizing of this, along with Ali Alexander. Now, to give you some history of who goes with what, because these folks didn't just, none of this was spontaneous.
Yeah.
And it becomes a clearer and more clear picture every day. This took months and months of planning. Every bit of it was pre-planned, staged, and thought out.
And publicized.
And a lot of these folks have been working together and getting their act together, if you will, for a very long time. And nobody has done a better job of documenting Jennifer Cohen on Twitter. And so I'm going to share a Twitter thread where she kind of covers the connections with the Bundys and with the Oath Keeper, the Malheur standoff in 2014, where the Bundys took over a wildlife refuge called Malheur Beds, and then they got into a big fight where they were arrested and somebody was killed. There's like one guy killed.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys remember all of that? And by the way, they pretty much got away with doing this for a while. You know, the feds didn't go in there with LRADs and water cannons and do all the things that they did to the Standing Rock protesters, which we saw, in the years to follow. So take a look at this tweet by Jennifer where she's identifying that the Oath Keepers supported Cliven Bundy at the armed standoff with federal government. And who else supported Cliven Bundy? None other than Roger Stone and member of Congress Paul Gosar. Can we go back to the Cohen tweet that we were on, please? We could go back to that. Paul Gosar, as well as Kelly Ward, Congresswoman Kelly Ward, was also in support of the Bundys. So, when everyone comes together to work on this insurrection and, this attempted coup, it's a reunion for them.
Yeah.
Because they've been working together for a long time. Take a look at this picture from November. Oh, wait, no, not November. This is Bundy and Stone in Nevada. And this picture was from September of 2020. You can see there that this was taken in Nevada in September of 2020. And this was posted by someone on Twitter saying, "Nothing to see here. Just the Nevada National GOP committee posing with felon Roger Stone, who just publicly advocated for Trump to seize power if he loses." Wow. And Cliven Bundy. So he's next to Cliven Bundy in the photo. And he met with the Bundys in Nevada. There's also an event that he spoke at, defending the Bundys, standing up for their way of life and what they stand for, the overreach of the federal government, blah, blah, blah. Here is Kelly Ward and Paul Gosar at the Bundy Ranch in 2014, taken by Paul Gosar himself on his Facebook or his Twitter page. So Kelly Ward and Paul Gosar go way back in their support of militia people that want to overthrow their government. That's normal, right? Then we have the little-known story of Roger Stone, the Bundy clan, and Roger Stone's bodyguard. Cliven Bundy's militiaman, oathkeeper, Joseph O'Shaughnessy. Take a look at the connections between the two, because O'Shaughnessy used to be the bodyguard for Cliven Bundy.
Okay. Wow.
He used to be the bodyguard for Cliven Bundy. Remember, the Oath Keepers were at Malheur, and they were supporting Cliven Bundy at the standoff. Then he became Roger Stone's bodyguard, and you can see here on this post a whole slew of photographs of different social media pages. Let's go to the next slide here, and I'll blow one of these up for you. The first one shows that same picture in Nevada with Cliven Bundy all the way on the is it the right of your screen, the left of your screen? Roger Stone and Cliven Bundy in Nevada, that photo I showed you earlier. And then, of course, Roger Stone tweets that he's going to go back to Las Vegas on September 15 and ask then President Trump to pardon the Bundys and their supporters. And guess what? Trump did.
Yeah.
He pardoned them. So there's a direct connection between the support of Roger Stone of the Oath Keepers and getting them pardoned for their conspiracy to stop government agents at Malheur. They were charged with conspiracy, you know?
Yeah.
So then we have this from Roger Stone's personal bodyguard is this O'Shaughnessy guy, who's also Cliven Bundy's militia guy. So here are pictures of this bodyguard, Joseph O'Shaughnessy. His Instagram is CPTO. I don't know what CPT stands for, but here is the next slide from that Instagram account. And you can see that in this Instagram account, there is a variety of photos. One of them at the top there is Roger Stone and Alex Jones, and then there's the pillow guy, the My Pillow guy, and then down at the bottom it's got a group of people that are associated with the Arizona audit, and you'll see that one of the people there is one of the broadcasters from America's Voice, Ben Berquam.
Wow.
He's tagged in the photograph with on the Instagram page of one of the people that is associated with the insurrection and the protection of Roger Stone explicitly.
Wow.
Next, I'm going to show you the slide here of O'Shaughnessy from his aunt's social media. So on January 24, Joseph O'Shaughnessy's aunt posted pictures of him in Washington and with Roger Stone and Amon Bundy and his militiamen. and Alex Jones, and they were all together along with Ali Alexander in late December of 2020. We know that there was a group of people out there from America's Voice right around the 12th, because you remember Enrique Tarrio was charged for burning a Black Lives Matter banner from outside of a church, right? That's how they picked him up on January 5th when he was coming into D.C. That's why Enrique Tarrio, who's usually the bodyguard for Roger Stone, wasn't there. And if you look at this picture again, you'll see that one of the pictures that was posted to this aunt's page included Latinos for Trump, Bianca Gracia, in that middle picture right there.
Oh, yeah.
There's Bianca Gracia from Latinos for Trump, which are also working closely together with a group of people that were at one of these war rooms in the hotel rooms.
Wow.
That were helping coordinate all of the January 6th activities. Then I want to show you this next photo from an article. This is from a PDF about the Capitol riot, in which Cliven Bundy is upset. He is unhappy that they retreated, that they should not have left. So remember, I've told you there was clearly a plan to occupy the Capitol, likely for more than one day. And Cliven Bundy, the Bundys, were all in support of this insurrection, were likely giving aid, support, consulting, what have you. But here's what I found really interesting about this article and what Cliven Bundy had to say. He wasn't just angry about the retreat. He had this to say about the people, what Trump should have done. He said, I'm going to go to the quote there. He said, today, President Trump had hundreds of thousands of people, and he pointed the way. He pointed toward Congress and nodded his head, go get the job done. We the people did clear the Chamber of Congress. We the people did clear the chambers of Congress, and 100,000 people should have spent the night in the halls, and 100,000 should have protected them. So 100,000 should have been inside the Capitol occupying it, and another 100,000 should have been protecting those people that were occupying. He concluded, Trump blew his trump of retreat, and the sun goes down. So he called it off.
Wow.
And is it just me, or does it sound like Cliven is calling him a coward,
Yep.
a loser? You blew it. This is what should have happened. What should have happened is we should have been able to take over. We should have been able to stay there. But he blew the trumpet of retreat.
Yeah.
Instead of blowing the trumpet for them to stay there and occupy and steal the election, instead he called it off, and that's not what should have happened. Doesn't that sound like he had foreknowledge of what should have happened, or what Trump was supposed to do,
And then he made
but didn't do?
His militia got angry with him.
His militia got angry with him because he didn't finish the job, according to them. And let me show you who was at that malheur, because O'Shaughnessy was at the Bundy standoff. He was there to protect the Bundys at that standoff. Let's take a look. And if you see, this is from The Anatomy of a Standoff, Malheur Occupiers. It has a list, And this comes from the Anti-Defamation League. The Anti-Defamation League published a list of all of the people, kind of like, a profile of each of these, militia standoff people, so that you could kind of follow who these folks are. And guess who's on that list? None other than Joe O'Shaughnessy. He was there. We get to find out a whole bunch of things that he's been associated with. He's from the Arizona militia. He's been active for several years with right-wing extremist causes. He's done vigilante border patrol stuff with anti-immigration groups at the Mexican border. In 2015, after the shooting at buildings in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he called for militia members and other anti-government extremists to block the entrances of local mosques. So he's obviously also anti-Muslim.
Yep.
He's often referred to himself as Captain O'Shaughnessy. And in a press release issued in Oregon, he described himself as being associated with the North American Coalition of Constitutional Militias. There's a whole group of them.
Wow.
After a week of the standoff, O'Shaughnessy began to have some suspicions about the occupation, asking, has anyone stopped to think how did they get some of the greatest men in the Patriot movement to go out into the middle of nowhere and occupy a small building at the coldest time of the year, at a time where everybody is broke because of the holidays? I don't know about you, but this is all starting to look fishy to me. Well, he never left the Bundys. He never stopped supporting them, and he never left the Oath Keepers. So even though he did have misgivings at Malheur in 2014, he stuck with it. Guess who else was there? Joe Biggs. Joe Biggs was at the standoff as well. All of the people that we saw at the 1/6 insurrection coup attempt,
Yep.
they were at Malheur
Wow.
in 2014. It's important for us to pay attention to where these people came from.
Exactly.
And what they've been up to leading up to this. Take a look at Joe Biggs's description. He's based in Texas. Biggs is a quote-unquote reporter for conspiracy website InfoWars, run by Alex Jones. Here's the connection back to Alex Jones, Joe Biggs. And of course, one of the founders practically of the Proud Boys is Roger Stone, so that all comes for a full circle.
Yeah.
Biggs achieved notoriety following the death of a journalist and war correspondent, Michael Hastings, in an automobile accident in California. He's a former military veteran, and he was close to Hastings, so he basically said that this guy was murdered at the hands of the government. He also appeared with conspiracy theorist and talk show host Alex Jones. Biggs seems to have missed the 2014 Bundy Ranch standoff, but spent time in 2014 and 2015 on the border of Mexico investigating reports of secret bases belonging to Islamic terrorist group ISIS. In 2015, he covered an anti-Muslim rally in Phoenix. He was accompanied by armed members of the Oath Keepers, and he was also in Ferguson, Missouri, in August of 2015. In December of 2015, Biggs and Alex Jones alleged that the San Bernardino shootings were a false flag operation. Remember that in California? And Biggs arrived in Oregon in January 3rd to cover the standoff for InfoWars, and spent much of his time in the refuge headquarters. So this goes back to Ferguson, when we started following the Oath Keepers.
That's right. And
in upcoming shows, I'm going to show you some of the people that were at Ferguson, besides these folks, right? That ended up having connections to the January 6th insurrection many years down the road. But for now, I want to remind people where else these people were. And I have to tell you, I almost lost my mind trying to do this, because I knew when I did the reporting on Standing Rock, I did such a deep dive. I've had a scientific journal published an article that I wrote, a scientific article that we wrote together with Professor Correa Cabrera and our friend Professor Yarwoski, in which I detailed all of the different groups that we found there. What I didn't go into a lot of detail was the fact that there was, the militias were represented at Standing Rock. And so I went back to start to look up articles and posts and stories about the Bundys being at Standing Rock and the Oath Keepers being at Standing Rock and 3%ers being at Standing Rock. I couldn't find a dang thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. I thought I was going crazy. And so I asked you, I'm like, am I going insane?
Mm-hmm.
Were the Bundys not at Standing Rock? How did I know that the Bundys were at Standing Rock, Duke?
Because I saw them.
We were there.
We were there. We went to Standing Rock, 5-6 times. We would go and report, and over a period of months. And we stayed at the casino. It was a comfortable place to stay, only a few miles from the camp. And on November 20th,
there was a lot of people that came.
A lot of people because it was getting cold out, and people were swarming in.
I think it was there was going to be a staged standoff.
Yep.
Between the police and between the protesters, and there was going to be a predetermined event because I can't remember the name of the guy from Twisted Sister, the singer from Twisted Sister.
Dee Snider.
Dee Snider was there with AIM of Southern California.
Yeah, I saw them walk in. We were up at the media tent, and Cindy was doing something, interviewing somebody, and I was like, look at that guy with that old guy with the long blonde hair, and damn, that AIM leader with the jacket. It's really the fanciest jacket I'd seen at camp.
Right.
It's at AIM of Southern California.
Yep.
And he went in there and he took a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was over an hour.
In the media tent.
In the media tent, but later find out that he had his son, Cody Blue, with him, and they were doing a video.
And they had a whole production team of cameras.
They had the backgrounds of the water cannons hitting protesters and all that sort of stuff for their video.
Do you think that Dee Snider of Twisted Sister showed up with his son and a whole production crew to film a video where he was going to capture water cannons attacking Native Americans, and he just got lucky? Yeah.
But anyways, I was in finish my story where I was waiting to get our room because we had reservations, and there's a line. There's about 15 people all gathered together, and I saw these kind of rough-looking guys. Their hair is all messed up, and they're kind of older, and they're in like army surplus gear type stuff. And one of them said, we're with the Bundys. We're with the Bundys. And someone says, what are you doing here? He says, we're here for the same reason, to protect our constitutional rights. And I remember a lot of us kind of looking, the Bundys are here, and, we all started scooting over a little bit. And then Dee Snider was in the gift shop, and everybody's going, oh, Dee Snider, Dee Snider.
And then a bunch of people ran over there to take pictures.
In there, and then I just went back to my business, and later I told Cindy, well, there was the Bundys are here, and you're like, what? Did you get an interview? I said, no. I was like,
no, yeah, but the rumor just kept going on that the Bundys never came, but we know that they were there.
Yeah, they're checking into the hotel.
They were checking into the hotel. I'm not saying they were welcomed at the camp any more than I'm saying that the Oath Keepers were welcomed. I think that the Native American protest was infiltrated by all sorts of different militias, all sorts of different groups. People had an agenda, and they went to Standing Rock to carry out that agenda. But, folks, the Bundys were there in solidarity with the Standing Rock people. They went there, and so did the Oath Keepers. Let me show you some more of my proof. Besides my eyewitness that they were there.
Yeah.
I wish I would have taken pictures, but Dee Snider he was kind of being a rude jerk.
Yeah, he was like, nope, not going to take any pictures.
He didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to. Yeah, I think he was like there on business, and he wasn't going to be a celebrity for the minute, and so we just left him alone. We didn't. We pointed at him from afar, but I got to interview his son later.
Yeah.
Here is an article. By the way, none of these are available anymore. I had to use the Wayback Machine. If you don't know what that is, somebody took a picture of these articles from way back. But you cannot find on the Oath Keepers website any of these articles archived. The Oath Keepers have erased their presence at Standing Rock. The Bundys have erased their presence at Standing Rock. Don't worry, guys. I kept it for you. Okay. So here is the Last Real Indians article from back in the day in September of 2016, and it's titled, "The Fire Right Oath Keepers Seek to Exploit Water Protectors Stand." And you'll see here, as you scroll up, that they mention specifically a person from the Oath Keepers that was there. This is not the only person mentioned in these articles. If you want to check them out or look them up, you can, and you can go over this with a fine-tooth comb later on. Slow it down for yourself.
That's right.
But you can see here the Oath Keepers media director, Jason Van Tatenhove, made 2 trips to Standing Rock. The first occurred in late August, and the second began on September 8. He presented himself at Standing Rock as a reporter with Northern Liberty News, Montana-based far-right website run by James White. So the Last Real Indians had another article in which they talk about the Oath Keepers showing their true colors because of the articles that were disparaging of water protectors, and which compared the stand at Standing Rock to the Bundys. And Jason Van Tatenhove was responsible for writing these articles. So the Standing Rock Last Real Indians called them out in this letter. You can see, if you scroll down, that they took images from the Oath Keepers website, this being one of them, of the Indigenous Environmental Networks project, and it has the People's Climate Change Movement and a picture of what looks like either Kelsey Warren with a or George Soros. I can't tell who of those old white dudes that might be.
Yeah.
It could be George Soros. But anyway, again, this is no longer available on the Oath Keepers website. I tried to find all of these links to show you from their own website, but they're no longer there. They've erased it. Everything's gone. They were there. They were part of it. They were involved. They took lots of pictures, according to the screen capture in the Wayback Machine. At the very bottom of this, you can see that there's all sorts of pictures that they took. And so you can see here also that they talk about the fact that they had this anonymous person that was one of the Oath Keepers that was at Standing Rock writing under the pseudonym Navy Jack, and that they were, writing about how they were using the globalist interests to environmental something or other, and they praised President Donald Trump, and this was the call out from the Indigenous Last Real Indian website of the Oath Keepers, showing their true colors and telling on themselves about who they really are. Again, this no longer exists online, except in the Wayback Machine. Here is, in this next image, we show that recently Tatenhove, the same guy that you saw writing these articles at Standing Rock, has been talking for the past year with the Select Committee. He's been questioned about his involvement with the Oath Keepers. And according to this ABC News article, he quit the Oath Keepers in 2018. And I don't know how he stayed with them as long as he did without noticing the racism. But he admits here that eventually they took a hard right turn, quote unquote, and joined the group that went to Charlottesville for the Unite the Right rally and white nationalist Richard Spencer, and that at one point he even heard them denying the Holocaust, which is where he had to walk away. Huh. It seems a little, like, how did you miss it for so long?
That's right. He had some principle.
And then finally he's like, yeah, I had to leave. What's he doing now? Well, guess what? He's been talking to the select committee for the last year, and he is currently in a Hulu documentary.
Wow.
A documentary called Homegrown Standoff to Rebellion. There's a picture of him giving an interview to ABC News talking about the U.S. Capitol attack. And in this Hulu documentary, which you can find on Hulu, we've been watching it. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of connections between the Bundys and the Proud Boys. And, he has a lot of insight now that he's reformed and no longer part of the Oath Keepers into how dangerous this domestic terror threat is.
Really?
Oh, yes, he's got a lot to say about it. He says he's very scared for the next election. He knows what's coming down because these people are extremely, extremely dangerous. You should watch this Hulu documentary for yourself. Here's something else that was also erased from the interwebs. This article, written by none other than recently indicted Oath Keeper Stuart Rhodes. You can see right there, this was published on September 10, 2016. The title, incorrectly titled Standing Stone Camp. It should be Standing Rock.
Yep.
And it was Sacred Stone Camp. Yep. Mm-hmm. But, okay, Stuart got it a little bit, mixed up, but we know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And he shares that it takes about 14 hours to drive the two states, which put my arrival at the camp at just about midnight. He had to sleep in his car. He went there to check what happened after the canine attacks, and he found friends at the camp. So there were other Oath Keepers there, right? Mm-hmm. There are other Oath Keepers at the camp that he went to check in with, and he said that at the camp, there was a bunch of different people. Celebrities among them included Leonardo DiCaprio and rapper Immortal Technique. There's also a contingent delegation from Black Lives Matter. We showed you many other groups that went to Standing Rock. Stuart Rhodes tells you some of the ones he encountered when he was there. And if you keep looking at this, he documents, again, very much like Oath Keeper Communication Director Van Tottenhove, that the Bundys and the standoff at Standing Rock are very similar. These are people fighting for their rights against the federal government that is unfair, right? And in his bio, which is listed at the end of this article, there's some pretty interesting information. Stuart Rhodes, it says, is the founder and national president of the Oath Keepers and has served in the Army as a paratrooper until he was disabled in rough terrain parachuting accident during a night jump. This is before he shot his own eye out.
Wow. Handling
a gun, a loaded weapon. He's a former firearms instructor. Whoops. He needed some more training because he didn't do very well on the...
He failed that test.
Yeah, he failed the test of the
loaded gun.
Loaded gun, yeah. He's also a former member of Representative Ron Paul's D.C. staff.
Wow.
And he served as a volunteer firefighter in Montana, excuse me. He was previously the monthly Enemy at the Gate columnist for SWAT magazine. He graduated Yale Law School, which I'm sure you've all heard of, back in 2004, where he wrote a paper calling Solving the Puzzle of Enemy Combatant Status. Solving the Puzzle of Enemy Combatant. That's an enemy combatant, like a domestic terrorist, like a terrorist? Yes. And he won a prize for that paper. He then assisted teaching U.S. military history at Yale, was a researcher at Yale, and was writing a book about the dangers of applying the laws of war to the American people.
Wow.
And now he's involved in the coup against the American government.
Wow.
How did that happen? How did he go from being in Yale talking about the risks of applying these things of war on American soil, on American people, to leading an insurrection against his own government? There's a lot more details. But again, I think it's very important to look at the infiltration that occurred at Standing Rock. And I'm going to be bringing you a lot of other connections, because everything that has happened on January 6th, it was the culmination of many dress rehearsals, of much planning, of years of collaboration, and of many other actions that took place, including the one at Standing Rock, where people like the Oath Keepers were honing their skills for what they brought on January 6th. That's all I have for you tonight on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night. God bless.